everyone. It's time for another episode of Rebecca and Rebecca. My name is Rebecca Yager, and my partner in reading and writing and reviewing and loving books is Rebecca Reed. Hey, Rebecca.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, doing well. It's a beautiful day here in Texas, and we are super excited to have Gabrielle Meyer with us today because we loved this book. And if you saw our review that we did last month, we loved In This Moment. And so we're excited to talk to her and talk to her about her writing process and life in general. So welcome, Gabrielle. We're glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. So I'm going to read your bio a little bit just to introduce everyone to you, and then we'll dive right in. So Gabrielle is a wife, mom, writer, friend. I'm already tired. Gabrielle lives on the banks of the upper Mississippi River with her husband and 4 children. As an employee of the Minnesota Historical Society, how fun. She fell in love with the rich history of her state and enjoys writing historical and contemporary novels inspired by real people, places, and events. The river is a constant source of inspiration for Gabrielle, and if you look closely, you will find a river in each of her stories. I like that. When Gabrielle's not writing, you might find her homeschooling her children, cheering them on at sporting and theatrical events, or hosting a gathering at her home with family and friends. You sound busy.
It is busy, but it's good. All of those things I enjoy a lot. So when you enjoy something, it's not quite so much work.
Isn't that true? I
Yeah.
like that.
Laundry, I don't enjoy, so laundry is work.
Well, see, my deal is I don't mind putting stuff in the laundry or in the dryer. It's just sometimes getting it out of the dryer and put away that takes longer than it should. Okay.
That's when I listen to good books, is when I'm doing this that I don't like.
Yeah.
So distraction. So history buff, which I loved. I was telling Rebecca earlier as we were discussing your books that I lived in Virginia as a little girl, and I loved Williamsburg, loved Jamestown, loved DC. So you hit a lot of my favorite things in your books, but I want to find out a little bit more about you. And you have a love of, besides history, a little love of genealogy.
I do actually. So I live in central Minnesota, and I'm actually the 5th generation on one side of my family, but on the other side of my family, my grandma came to Minnesota from Oregon. And her family trekked across the country. Like, I have loved learning about her family, but that side of the family actually came to America in 1607 with the first group of colonists who came to Jamestown. So, not only that, but there was a lot I mean, there was only a couple thousand people in those first like 20 years, and so they kind of all knew each other. They're intermarrying. So I actually have a lot of family that came to America between like 1620 and 1640. They call it the Great Puritan Migration. And so, as I look back at a lot of genealogy, I see family. The founder of Salem, Massachusetts, Roger Conant, was actually one of my ancestors. I have ancestors on both sides of the Salem witch trial, accused and accusees. And so, as I look at genealogy, I'm not surprised that I love American history. It's just kind of part of my DNA. And so, one of the little Easter eggs in my books is that I actually used family names, surnames, for almost all of the main characters in this series. So in the first book, Libby Conant, that's after Roger Conant, and specifically In This Moment, book 2, all of the heroes and also the heroine, all of her last names are family names. So kind of a nod to my past.
I love that. A little bit of inside trivia there on that.
Yeah.
So do you build characters from any of your ancestors, or what you know about your ancestors besides the last
Yeah.
names?
So not, I have not yet. There are a few of them that I have considered bringing into books, but I haven't really delved too deeply into to telling their stories yet, just because I have so many other ideas to tell right now. So I'm sure, I kind of like to try to imagine that my ancestors are in the pages of these books, kind of watching what's going on, but have not put them in yet. No.
That's, well, you have future inspiration.
Yeah,
Right
definitely.
there. Okay, so being a wife, mom, homeschooling mom, 4 kids, you have to have a writing schedule of some sort to put out the books you're
I
putting out right now.
I do. And, I should preface it by saying that my two oldest are actually almost completely independent. So it's just the two younger boys that we homeschool. And my husband owns a landscaping and lawn care company. So he's home all winter. And so he does a lot of the work with the kids too. So I'm not doing it all. But I do have a very detailed schedule. Actually, I write 6 to 7 books a year for 3 different publishers. And so I've been doing this long enough that I know how long a book should take me to write, and then I also know generally how long it'll take me to edit. And so I can lay out a schedule that's pretty fair. I give myself lots of time off. We have my daughter's graduation party coming up in a few weeks, and I'm taking off time for that. So, of course, life steps in. This last year, starting in January, we had a bunch of things kind of pop up into our lives that made my schedule kind of laugh at me. So my husband had a hip replacement surgery, which was expected. We knew that. But then my son, actually, one of my twins, they're 13, and he had to have a heart procedure down at the Children's Hospital. And so it was just weeks of trying to figure that out and, get a diagnosis. And thankfully, it was taken care of and he's doing just fine and should have no complications. But, when that happens, then I try to give myself a little buffer of weeks, on either end of my writing so that I can kind of move things around. But I got behind and it was kind of tough to catch up, but I did it. So here we are.
Yay. Well, I like your reward, and you may have to share with me. Your reward I saw was Caribou Java Chunk. Now, Caribou is a coffee brand, but is that an ice cream brand in Minnesota? It's not in Texas, so I'm not familiar with it.
Yes. Okay. So Kemp's is a Minnesota ice cream or dairy brand that we have here. It's a pretty popular one. And then Caribou is our version of Starbucks. It's a Minnesota coffee company. And so they teamed up and they created this Java Chunk ice cream. And oh my God. You know what? I wish I could say I saved it for a treat, but I enjoy that treat almost every single night. It is so good. It's just anyway, so I pity anybody who doesn't have access to this ice cream because it's pretty amazing.
Well, then pity me, I guess. But in Texas, we have Bluebell, if anybody, which is very
Yes.
regional around here. So,
Yeah.
I presume your motivation for most writing, like most writers, is deadlines, correct?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, actually, I liked your question that you had sent me earlier about motivation, because I've been thinking a lot about it lately. And I heard a really good quote. It said that motivation isn't found, it's created. And when I dug deeper into that, I realized that motivation really comes from just being committed to something and showing up every single day and doing what you have agreed to do. And so, yeah, for a lot of writers who are on contract, or even for those who choose to self-publish, we usually have some kind of deadline that we have to meet. And so, this last year, had I not had a deadline, maybe getting behind in my writing wouldn't have been such a big deal. But because I have those deadlines, I didn't have a choice. I had to sit down and get the work done. But I look at my work really like I would if I had a full-time job, if I was a teacher or a doctor or any other, profession out there. You show up every single day to your job and you get it done. And a lot of us don't have a choice. We just got to get it done. So that's what I look at my writing as. It's my full-time job. And so I sit down every day, whether I feel like it or not, and I get those stories written. Most of the time, I feel like it. I really enjoy writing for sure. But, it's finally spring out here in Minnesota. It's a little tough on some days, but I take breaks in between. I usually write for about an hour and then I'll take my dog on a walk and kind of refresh and get moving again. And so, yeah, those are little mini rewards is taking her out on a walk.
Minnesota is an absolutely beautiful state, especially in the spring. So
yes,
that's good. But again, anyone who thinks writing is glamorous, we sit there and the words flow. And not to discourage anyone, but it is a
Right.
business and it is hard work. And I think Rebecca can
Mhm.
attest to that too. With her, she's a teacher in daytime job, and then I don't know how she puts out the number of words you put out, Rebecca. You do.
It's the same thing. I mean, I just sit down and I get up earlier in the morning because I know that I'm going to be at school, and so I write before I go to school. I go to school, I do that, and then I come home at night and I write some more. And that's how it works. It's just exactly what Gabe said, you know. So Gabriel, it's like you just do it because that's how you schedule it. So you figure out when you can do it. I write a lot on the weekends. That's how you
Mhm.
do it.
Yep. Make it happen. Okay, I got to get into in this moment. And we had a couple of questions. One of them came up during our review of this. You talk about being a super plotter, but then we were also curious. So you'll talk to us about your plotting process, but because you're writing in different timelines, and especially in this moment, 3 different timelines, did you write one timeline at a time, or did you write sequentially, or how did you make this work with you still got the Maggie, the main character, but you still got to make it all work.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think that I could write these books if I wasn't a super plotter, as I call it, because there's so much going on. So like you said, In This Moment has 3 different timelines. They're 1861, 1941, 2001. So for anybody who hasn't read it or seen the premise of it, um, it's about a woman who is born with a gift to cross time. So she goes to sleep in 1861. Next day, she wakes up in 1941. Next day, she wakes up in 2001. Then she goes back to 1861, and no time has passed while she's gone. And on her 21st birthday, she has to choose which of those lives she wants to keep and which one she'll forfeit forever. So I chose those 3 timelines because I was always fascinated by the fact that the American Civil War and World War II took place on very similar ending years. So 1861 to 1865, 1941 to 1945. And then on September 11th, when everything was happening, I realized it was 2001. It was another one. And I'm not really a numbers person, and numerology doesn't really, I've never studied it, but that just fascinated me. So when I decided to give her 3 timelines, it just kind of made sense to me that I would take those years. And so when I laid out this plot, I have a I have a spreadsheet, and it is color coded, and each little box I kind of do a brief kind of synopsis of that chapter. And I kind of had to lay it out to make sure that all of the main events that I wanted to cover would line up so that the reader doesn't feel like they're being jerked back and forth, or that it's very episodic. I wanted her to be able to experience something in 1861, and then the next day when she wakes up in 1941, not only is she going to experience what's happening there, but she's going to reflect upon what's going on in her other timelines. So to answer your question, I write very linear. I don't jump around. I start in 1861 and I would write that chapter one day. I would come back the next day, read what I wrote, and then write chapter 1941. Then the next day, 2001. I wanted to move through the story like the reader would move through the story, and like Maggie would, so that, like I said, she's kind of reflecting, and so that it feels like one person living these 3 different lives. So, yes, I wrote it all in
Wow.
sequence. Yeah.
I think it's amazing because we
Wow.
loved it. We loved book 1 as well.
Thank
And
you.
excited about so book 3 is already written.
It
So
is. Yep.
have you gone
Yep.
through
So
the edits, or sorry?
yeah, it's okay. I just got the edits back, the first content edits. I got my letter from my editor just this last week. So I'll start working on that on June 1st. It's on my schedule. And so I'll have a month to work on those. And yeah, so I don't want to talk too much about book 3 because I don't want to ruin anything for book 2. But one of the timelines, I can say this, I won't give anything away, is set in 1692 during the Salem witch trials.
Mhm.
So that was really intense to write about. I did
Yeah.
a lot of research, and yeah, so
And again,
it
and
was
That's such a controversial time too. So like I'm sure
mhm,
I bet your research was really interesting because you were getting both sides of that
mhm,
issue. I mean, there's so many things and I think time has changed the way we look at it too a lot.
Hmm.
So you're so how do you do, I mean, I think that's one of the challenges of historicals is that, we process history with a modern view. And we
Yeah.
know, we have that ability to look back and see the how things, pinned together to create that sequence that, and eventually came about. But when you're in the moment, not to quote the book or anything, but when you're, doing the research and you're writing it, you have to, she's there. Now,
Mhm.
if they have a future timeline, then they would know some of that too, which we kind of experienced in this moment with
Mhm.
Maggie. But how challenging is that to like be able to peel away the modern viewpoint, especially for the characters who are only in that timeline, and you can't express anything from a modern viewpoint.
Yeah. No, it's tough. And I think anybody who writes historical fiction would agree that it's tough to give your characters the right perspective for the time period, and but also to realize that you are writing a book for modern sensibilities and modern opinions and ideas. So that is a challenge to stay true to those characters. And this is different too because, they have a future knowledge of other things, so they can look back, like you said, and have a different perspective than the people around them. That also makes it kind of fun to write about because the character does do that. Like, she has this idea of what's actually happening while she can't really talk to anybody else about what she thinks it is. And so, you know, one of the challenges too in writing books like this is that I know that a lot of readers who read it might disagree with, how things are presented, or are, I did a lot of research, and so I have my own kind of theories about what was going on. And I never really come right out and say what I think happened in Salem. The character has some ideas, but I mean, will we ever really know? I don't think we will. But there actually are some really good modern theories about what took place there that I was really excited to learn about that I hadn't known before. So
That
yeah,
sounds
it's
interesting.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that what you mentioned as far as the character and having foreknowledge actually became quite a source of conflict in this moment
Hmm.
too. So
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, to me, the hardest thing was her going from 2001 back to 1861 with her knowledge of 2001, especially. That's such a big,
Yeah.
jump on that to do that. So, what is book three's title and when does it come out?
I don't have a title yet for
Okay.
it, but it releases in May of 2024, so another year. But yeah, but hopefully it'll be worth the wait, I hope. And then I just signed another contract with Bethany House, and so I'll be doing another series for them, and they'll be coming out every 6 months, so won't be quite as long to wait.
That's good. Is this the American Dollar Princesses series
Yes,
you
yeah,
mentioned?
yep. And that idea was kind of born from my research from book number one, When the Day Comes, because Libby is a dollar princess. And so I just the research that I did, I was so fascinated. I thought, oh, this deserves a series all its own. So each of those books are also loosely inspired by movie musicals. So the first one is inspired by My Fair Lady. So for anybody who might be a fan of movie musicals, there'll be a few nods to My Fair Lady in there that you'll recognize. Yeah.
You
Even
speak my
he even
language.
yeah, he even says something about the street where you live.
Oh God.
Just kind of just little things that, slip right in, and I love My Fair Lady, just one of my favorites. So yeah.
Well, I admire your research because it does seem just thorough. You place us right there with the characters in the time periods. It's done so well. So your research seems to take up the bulk of your time, and you write really fast. Then once you
Yeah.
have your plotting
Yeah.
laid out, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So, my research usually for about 6 months, I'm reading books or listening to audiobooks is what I do the most. And my poor children and husband, actually, I don't feel bad for them because they enjoy it. They just don't always say that they enjoy it. But we listen to so many audiobooks, nonfiction audiobooks, and sometimes I'll listen more than once to them because there's just so much that comes. But yeah, so for instance, in this moment, I did several months of research, while I'm writing other things, while I'm doing other things. It took me about a week to plot it, to lay it all out, to get the synopsis written. And then I fast drafted it in 5 weeks. So it comes together very quickly from that point. So
when you have it out. Well, I think in this moment, and Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong, I think was probably one of our favorite books we've ever reviewed.
thank you.
Truly.
Yeah. And I loved book one, which is why I suggested we do this one. When I saw it was coming out, I'm like, Rebecca, we have to read this book because the first one was really, really good. I was like, so yeah, I was captivated by the whole premise of it. I thought it was really a unique way to deal with the time travel idea. Um, yeah, it just really was fascinating, and I really liked it, and I thought you did a great job with the setting and the characters, and I just and it continued right into the second book too, and I'm sure that the third book will be just as good. I'm
There
confident.
is, thank you. I am feeling a little pressure. I'm going to be honest because I think so many people have so many expectations that I'm trying not to let that, hinder me in any way. But um, what I'm trying to do with each book is to set them each apart so that, like book one, she had a very clear desire. She knew which life she wanted. So in book two, I wanted Maggie to not have a clear picture of what she wanted. And so that would, be one of the main differences. And then in book three, I have a completely different setup too. So that's my hope and desires that each book will be fresh and kind of work within the same kind of premise or story world or time travel rules, but stand apart as its own story. So that's the dream, the hope, the goal.
No, you did. You succeeded really well between book one and book two from in this
Yeah,
moment. So I thought, how when I finished book one, I'm like, how is she going to change this for in this moment?
Yeah,
And you did. So,
thank you.
yeah. And
brilliantly. So
then
don't feel pressure.
no,
Yeah.
I think I was like, when I was reading book two, I was like, what is she going to do differently for book three? Because, again, like I could tell that was what you were kind of going for was, the same basic idea, but with a different focus. And so I was like, oh, the whole time I was reading, I'm like, how is she going to make this be different? So I thought you did a really good job of setting up book three and book two. And I'm excited about that idea because that'll be different and new and fun.
Yeah.
Um,
My
so
my hope is moving forward. I've had a lot of people ask for more books in the Timeless series, and because I'm going to shift gears with Bethany House, I've thought about possibly self-publishing a fourth book, but I really want to delve into the villain side of time crossing in book
mm,
number 4. So there will be pirates, and I will kind of introduce in the end of book 3 the heroine for book 4, but it'll be a very slight nod to who that is. I think you'll know by the end of the book, but kind of wanting to wrap it up with the contract with Bethany House so that it feels complete and all of the things are brought back together, but hinting at the possibility of another one. So
Well, like
well, I
that.
mean, yeah, this would be something like you could just stick a book, because you could do so many different things, and you have a lot of characters already that are
mhm.
in there that you could kind of spin off of, and so yeah, that would be fun. I like that
Yeah,
idea. So,
Well,
that's the plan.
we're thrilled. All right. Well, when the day comes is out now in this moment, which is what we're really talking about with our review last month. And this interview is out now. So get them and then wait patiently for 2024.
well, not so patiently, but you have to wait. So
For book 3, but we're excited that there's more coming and a new series is coming too. So we've got lots to look forward to because I know once you read one of these books, you're going to be a fan of Gabrielle Meyer. Gabrielle, tell us where people can find you, your website or Facebook?
So, yep. My website is gabriellemeyer.com. And if you go there, you should be able to find all of my social media links. I love Instagram and Facebook. I'm there far too often. And you can also sign up for my newsletter there as well.
Well, fabulous. Yeah, sign up for the newsletter because then you'll know when all the books are coming out as a reader. So it's a great thing to do to connect with the author and know when everything's happening. And sometimes they give sneak peeks or fun hints or cover reveals ahead of time. Yep. Yeah. So that's very good. Any other questions for Gabrielle, Rebecca? You need anything?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but not right now. We'll wait.
All right. In This Moment is out now. Find Gabrielle at Gabrielle Meyer, MEYER.com. And we so thank you, Gabrielle, for being here today and for talking with us. And we wish you well on your future books. And maybe we'll have to have you back.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right. That's it for now, everyone. We hope to see you next time. And this is Rebecca and Rebecca. Thanks again.